Have you ever noticed brown stains on your teeth that just won't go away no matter how much you're brushing? Well, what if I told you it could be from something that you had no control of? You see, some antibiotics that they used to give kids back in the day can actually cause permanent stains in the teeth. So in this video, I'm going to break this down in a super simple way so you can understand if this happened to you and what type of stains these antibiotics typically cause, and also what antibiotics we even used in the first place that cause this. And I'm also going to go over some options to fix it if this happened to you. The problem with stains from antibiotics is they're actually really misunderstood. A lot of people waste money on like whitening strips or getting their teeth professionally whitened to fix these stains, but the stains from antibiotics are actually not fixable with whitening. And this is actually more common than people realize, especially if you were born before the 90s. So yeah, most millennials and Gen Zers and Gen Alphas and whatever else is out there, you guys are probably fine. So what are the antibiotics that cause these problems? So the two antibiotics were tetracycline and doxycycline. These are really common to give to kids for things like ear infections or acne or respiratory infections. So this could happen one of two ways. Either it was given to a pregnant woman or they were given to a child. Either way, whether it's a child or a baby that's growing in the womb, their adult teeth are forming underneath the gums. So I know typically those baby teeth will come in, so you're wondering like, where are these adult teeth even at? Well, it takes time for them to get developed. And if those antibiotics are taken from that pregnant lady or from that child as their teeth are developing, then those antibiotics can actually bind to the calcium that's in those developing teeth. And since those teeth are still developing and hardening, that binding of that medicine to this calcium will cause these permanent stains. As a result, these teeth can tend to look a lot more yellow or dark brown or grayish. And this is often a deep stain inside of the tooth. It's not just from the surface. And what's interesting is this tetracycline actually reacts with light, especially UV light. So once that tooth comes in and goes out of the gums and gets exposed to sunlight, that stain actually gets darker. So you might notice it's a little bit at first and then eventually gets darker and worse over time. That's because those stains were exposed to light. So think of your teeth kind of like these sponges. Now these antibiotics actually color that sponge before you even open it from its package. So obviously now doctors and dentists are avoiding prescribing these antibiotics to pregnant ladies and to children. Your teeth typically develop until the age of 8. So children before the age of 8 are generally not given doxycycline and tetracycline. It took them time to realize that, hey, I should probably stop giving these patients these antibiotics and think of something else because everyone's teeth are turning brown. Now there are some other cases of tooth discoloration that could be from something else. So another really common one is fluorosis. Fluorosis happens when a child was exposed to too much fluoride as their teeth were developing. So again, this only happens really until the age of 8. After that point, more fluoride won't really do anything, just like having a tetracycline or doxycycline prescription. Now, fluoride typically looks a little different. It typically looks more like white or blotted spots on the teeth. But if it's really severe fluorosis, now it can start to look more brown and pitted. Luckily in the US, this is so rare because the water levels are so regulated. So fluoride in the US is regulated to 0.7 parts per million in the drinking water. So cases of fluorosis in the US are most likely from kids that are swallowing too much toothpaste or taking these fluoride supplements when they shouldn't be. And again, all this has to happen as those teeth are actually developing. But sometimes in other countries where the fluoride levels are not regulated in the drinking water, you'll start to see these severe cases because no one knows how much fluoride they're actually consuming. And this is also part of the reason why I tell parents to not give their kid fluoride toothpaste until they're able to spit it out. If they're just swallowing everything, then you should still use a fluoride-free toothpaste. Now, what are some other causes of discoloration on the teeth? Obviously, there's things like coffee or different beverages that can stain your teeth, but you can also get it from things like trauma. If you ever run into something or hit your tooth, over time that tooth can change color. It can turn more gray, and this is a sign that that tooth is basically dying. You can also get tooth staining if you're not brushing and flossing regularly, or even if you've been neglecting going to the dentist, because there's something called tartar that will build up on your teeth if you don't go to the dentist. So typically after you're cleaning, when you get home, you start to get these bacteria that basically cling onto your teeth, and then if it's not cleaned away, they'll start to form this biofilm. This biofilm is called plaque, and this is really loosely attached to your teeth. And then you can brush and floss this away at home, but sometimes this plaque will harden and mix with your saliva and get mineralized and turn into tartar. Tartar gets kind of stuck to your teeth and it starts to look more yellow. And you might think that, hey, my teeth are starting to stain, I need to whiten them, but the tartar will not change color. You actually have to go to the dentist and get that tartar removed. You can also get staining from like nicotine or smoking. These stains will look a little bit more yellow or more brown. Now going back to these antibiotic stains, I know we talked about how whitening strips will not affect them. So what can you do? do? Well, unfortunately, the only way is getting an actual procedure done at the dentist. Now, this can be really simple to something a little bit more aggressive. It really depends on how extensive the stain is and if you have like anything else, like any damage to the tooth or any cavity or anything like that going on. For example, sometimes you can get a little bonding on the tooth, which is like where you put this composite directly on top of the tooth. You won't really have to remove any tooth structure, and all you do is just place something directly on top of the tooth. This is a good option because you don't have to remove any tooth structure. So if anything ever fails or falls off, you still have your natural tooth structure underneath. But sometimes that stain is so dark that you need to get something a little bit thicker. And the only way to get things more thick is to actually remove tooth structure. Otherwise, if you just put a really thin piece of bonding or like a porcelain piece on top of that tooth, that stain will still show through. So this is where you might consider getting like veneers or crowns on those teeth, depending on how intense that stain is. And also obviously depending on the other damage to the tooth, like if there's been any cavity or any fracture to the tooth. But the only way to really fix that stain is to cover it with something. So if you have some stains that are just not going away, like you go to the dentist and you brush and floss really regularly, you might want to ask your dentist about it, like what could have caused the stain and what are some things I can do about it. Otherwise, if it doesn't bother you and as long as that tooth is healthy, then you don't really have to do anything about it. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you liked that video. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel below, and I will see you in the next video. The future of dentistry just got a lot more interesting. Woo! We finally have robots that are gonna do our fillings. No, not quite. I'm talking about stem cells. Now, I previously made a video talking about how scientists are trying to use stem cells to regrow teeth in our mouth so that when we lose an adult tooth, we might be able to grow a new